Now we're back to the Dvar Malchut, which we did not learn yesterday, and I did not put it up yesterday. For those of you who were not here yesterday, well, I also wasn't here yesterday because I went to a jail. It was the last day of Hanukkah, so I went to a jail in Beersheba, and I spoke there, and I played guitar, and they danced, and they were a little bit happy, and they were happy. It was very nice. It was beautiful, but I did not give the class. I put last year's class up, but I did not put I put last year's Torah or class up, but I didn't put last year's Dvar Malchut. So here we go, Dvar Malchut. What are we talking about this Dvar Malchut over here? We're talking about another amazing lesson that we can learn from this week's Torah portion, especially regarding Moshiach. Now, the Lubavitcher Rebbe is trying to make everybody crazy about Moshiach. And it definitely is not his idea. He did not originate this idea. The idea was originated with Abraham. God told Abraham he was going to be the father of all nations, Av Hamon Goyim. That Abraham was responsible for all mankind to teach them about God. That's Moshiach. That's what Moshiach is going to do. From the time of Abraham until the Lubavitcher Rebbe, it has not yet happened. But the Lubavitcher Rebbes, the Chabad Rebbes, each one, beginning with the first Rebbe of Chabad, we just finished learning, they definitely tried, and they set the stage by teaching these ideas of Chassidut. And the ideas of Chassidut are making it possible for people to think about God all day. That's what Moshiach is going to do. He's going to fill the world with the awareness of God. People will be able to think about God in practical, realistic, the dynamic, vital, happy terms every moment of their life. And that's what these ideas are. Okay, so everything in the Torah is designed to this end, to teach us how to be servants of the Creator, and eventually to bring Mashiach, who will convince all of the world to be servants of the Creator. And like we said before, when people are servants of the Creator, what happens? Everybody is unique, and everybody expresses their personality and their potential and their hidden talents. And every moment becomes valuable and exciting, and life becomes an amazing, beautiful mystery. That's the way it's supposed to be, and that's what the Rebbe is starting to reveal to us now. That's the secret of the Torah, the oil of the Torah. Okay, so this week's Torah portion, we learn a very interesting thing. First of all, it's no secret that the Moshiach is going to come from the tribe of Yehuda. Moshiach ben David. David comes from Yehuda. Here we see in this week's Torah portion a very interesting thing about Yehuda. Yehuda and his brothers are basically captives. Yosef is their brother that they threw into a pit, tried to kill him, and now they don't recognize him, but he survived, and he is now, unbeknownst to them, sitting in front of them as the king of the whole entire world. And he's driving them crazy. And he accuses their younger brother of stealing from him his special cup. And he's going to put him in jail. And all the brothers saying, no, what's going on now? What's going to happen? We have a father, he's going to hear our brother is taken into prison, and he's going to go crazy. And Yehuda now steps forward to Yosef. But Yigash alav Yehuda. And Rashi says over there that he approached Yehuda with brazenness in a threatening way. So the Rebbe says, listen, this is a pretty amazing thing. I mean, Yehuda had no chance of winning over here against Yosef. He was totally, outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1. He had no chance whatsoever. And the Rebbe explains in the Sikha, I think we'll learn that Sikha, that even Yosef's 2 sons were stronger than Yehuda. His sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, that they were tremendously powerful people. And in any case, he was outnumbered. They didn't have any weapons. They were surrounded by all these Egyptians. They had all sorts of spears. Who knows what they had? But they certainly had weapons. Yehuda had nothing. Nevertheless, Yehuda disregarded all of this, and he approached Yosef in a way of, how do you say, in a threatening way, in a confrontational way. Says the Rebbe, from this we can learn that Yehuda has the ability to be unlimited and not to fear anything, even more than Yosef. Yosef was limited. He was a king. He had to act like a king. Certain things he could do, certain things he couldn't do. Yehuda was unlimited. How could he have this unlimited? It says, Dorish means a dying beer. Nevertheless, we have to understand. Here it says, okay, we can see the tokef, that this power, this, what's this? Yeah, that's right. No more pain, no more suffering. Exactly right. Very good. 1 minute. Am I? Oh, there it is. Good. Yeah. This assertiveness that Yehuda had, nothing. This gave a power that afterwards Yaakov and his sons could come down to Egypt, and they would be in such a way that they would take over their part in Egypt, and they would be successful there. And me even more, this is the preparation for what's going to be in the future, that everyone in the world is going to succeed. David Avdi Nasi Aleim La'olam. That King David is going to be the leader forever. Here we go. We'll just explain this. We said before, Yehuda, Hari, Hayalifi, because the Kasal Kadaitach, we might think that Yehuda and Yosef, this is, I'm sorry, what Yehuda thought. When Yehuda approached Yosef in this assertive way, he thought that Yosef was the viceroy. He was the king, the de facto king of the whole entire world. Lefi shehitvadah Yosef elachav. This is lifnei, before Yosef confessed to his brothers. Hagam, even though shebenogel tokef shel Yehuda, even though in regard this assertiveness, this bravery, defiance. Oh, this defiance of Yehuda, it made absolutely no difference to him who it was. He didn't know that this was Yosef. He didn't care if it was Yosef or anybody, right? But after Yosef revealed that he was his brother, Hari Lefiyam Yisenyanim, Kavar lo zakukim lechiora letokef shel Yehuda kadei lipo v'yachazu bo. What are we saying? That Yehuda showed this tremendous defiance to Yosef. Says the Rebbe that was what was going to, that defiance, that power of defiance, was what was going to make it good for the Jews afterwards, when Yosef told Yehuda to bring his father down, Yaakov, and he'll settle them, and they succeeded. So what caused their success afterwards in Egypt was the defiance of Yehuda. It says, even though that what did they need the defiance for? Yosef revealed himself. He was the brother, and that's it. He had connections. Yehuda and the family, they had connections. They were connected to the king of the whole world. They didn't need this defiance. What do we need the defiance for? Adarabah. But Pasha, simply, we can say that the Jewish people succeeded in Egypt afterwards, this is because Yosef. It had nothing to do with Yehuda. Yosef said to them, you, my brothers, you wanted to kill me. You thought bad. But the fact is that God, you were the emissaries of God. God wanted me to be here to save you and to save the whole world. Because of Yosef, Paro said, Tov kol haaretz Mitzrayim. If so, the reason the Jews succeeded in Egypt, they got a big, nice place called Eretz Goshen, and they succeeded, was not like what the Rebbe just said because of the defiance of Yehuda beforehand, but because Yosef was connected, and Yosef he gave them this. But Tziva, the Paro, he told them to have this land. Similarly, we also have to understand what it says in the Haftorah. What does it say in the Haftorah? Since that this defiance of Yehuda was only just temporary, before Yosef revealed who he really was. So what has that got to do with Yehuda and our Haftorah? Haftorah is what we just talked about from Yechezkel. What does it say in the end? The David Avdi Naseh Le'am Ololam says, King David, my servant, will be the leader for them forever. Yosef, since Yosef, he was the leader over Egypt, so this was the Tochen Hafuch. This is exactly the opposite of the Haftorah. And it talks about the Elias Yehuda, the Gabi Yosef. This week's Haftorah in the end says that Yehuda is going to be greater than Yosef. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. Why is that this week's Haftorah? The whole entire Torah portion talks about how Yosef was greater and Yosef was the king and Yosef gave them free parts in the land of Israel. And because of Yosef's influence, they succeeded. The whole thing was Yosef. How is it the Haftorah talks about the greatness of Yehuda? He's going to be the king. And that the Lubavitcher Rebbe just finished saying over here that the reason they succeeded in Egypt was not because of Yosef, but because they had all this pull in the connections in the government that Yosef was the king. Because of the defiance of Yehuda. How? Why? Or another way, the fact was, let's say it in another way, says the Rebbe. According to the fact that Yosef, he ruled over the world, so Yosef himself, he was the one who expressed the greatness and the power of the Jews in Egypt. They didn't need the bravery and the courage and the defiance of Yehuda. So what are we talking about? How do we learn from this whole thing that Yehuda is going to be the king, he's going to be the Moshiach, just because he defied Yosef for a few minutes? And that's the reason that they succeeded in Egypt, was because of the defiance of Yehuda. That's not so. It was because of Yosef. Says the Rebbe, no. Because everything that's in the Torah is really true, and also that which Yehuda thought that Yosef was a stranger and he was the king. So we have to say that this defiance, this bravery of Yehuda was not just a temporary thing. If the Torah says it, it must be that this is a whole new approach to the world. Even this is something even greater than the power of Yosef. And with this, the kingship, the rulership of Yosef, this power of defiance of Yehuda, even though it was very temporary, but this is the power that gave them success, the Jewish people in the land of Goshen. And this is the power that's going to make King David into the Moshiach. Was this one little incident of the bravery of Yehuda, this changes the whole world. Yesh Lomo, we can say that this is also understood. It says Yehuda shalach lefanav Yosef lahoros lefanav Goshen. Yehuda came back to his father and said, Father, I got good news. Yosef is alive and he's the king over Egypt and he wants you to come down. So Yaakov said, that's great. I'm going to come down, but you go there first. Run down before me in order to establish places of learning. That Yehuda went down there first in order to settle the land. At first glance, since that Yosef, he was the king of all of Egypt, as for sure Yosef was going, and he gave them the best place of the land of Egypt. Why did Yaakov have to send Yehuda there first? They just said, well, so this is understood that there's something special about this defiance and this courage of Yehuda, that's what really gave them the success in the land of Egypt. Not the greatness of Yosef or the connections they had with Yosef. Yeshlom, we can say it like this. The power of defiance that is in every Jew in this world, and especially now in the time of what we call exile, where we don't feel our connection to God, and we don't feel so much our Jewish identity, all of the exiles that Jewish people have been since Egypt are called Egypt. They're all called Mitzrayim. But this power, the power of defiance of a Jew, this can be in two ways. Number one, that his defiance, his courage and power can be only according to how it's possible, according to Chuki HaTeva, v'hanhagas ha'olam, only according to how the world does things. Al derech says similarly in the time of exile. This is according to the limits of exile, the laws of the country, etc. Or that's one way, or he stands totally above and anything's in the world and doesn't pay any attention to the nations of the world, to the non-Jews that are around him. He pays no attention to the exile. Exactly the opposite. He acts in a way of powerful, of bravery, of defiance. Until he has the power even to change the laws of the country. We can say that Tokef Shel Yehudi, that a Yehudi, that this power of defiance, which is in every Jew, this brings about that a Jew can not only be a ruler and a leader and over the non-Jews in the time, like in the world, according to the way the world works, that he's totally above that, and totally above the world. And there's one way, let's say, for instance, you're in a country and the country gives you total freedom. You can do whatever you want, right? And you stand proudly and you walk around in the streets and you, as a religious Jew, as however you want to, and you can get the laws changed in the country that you cannot, it's forbidden to hurt the Jews or to pain the Jews and everything like that. Wonderful. That's a certain power, right? And you can light the lights of Hanukkah and no one can do anything to you, right? You're not ashamed and you're not afraid and you're not of this. But you're still not really changing anything. You're just expressing who you are and you're not afraid of your surrounding. That's one way. Another way is to change the whole world around you. Like we see with Abraham. God said to Abraham, not just that gave him a blessing, not that everyone is going to leave you alone. And you Jewish people will be an eternal nation and you will be forever despite all of your enemies. You will still survive. That's very nice, but he didn't say that. He said, Abraham, you're going to change the whole world. You're going to be the father of all mankind. Everyone is going to recognize the creator of the universe, the God of Israel. Everyone. Oh, this is a whole different insanity. This is crazy. Good, maybe he said it to Abraham. It's in the Bible, but Abraham certainly didn't succeed. Neither Yitzchak, neither Yaakov. One person we did see that did a little bit succeed, and that is Mordechai. Let's explain this according to Mordechai, a Yehudi in the time of Achashverosh. Mordechai was in a situation similar to Yehuda standing in front of Yosef. Yehuda thought that Yosef was a non-Jew. Since that the Jewish people were in the time of Purim, they were in an exile of Prasumadai, Persia and Greece, whatever. Tachat Shilton HaMelech, they were under Achashverosh. Of the Achashverosh, we are servants of Achashverosh. Not like in the days of Hanukkah, that was in the time of the Second Temple, right? That the Jewish people had a certain sense of autonomy then. Nevertheless, right? The Jews ruled over Israel, but the Greeks took it over. They just had to get rid of the Greeks, and then they could return back to their rulership, which is not the case in Purim. Purim was between the first and the second temples. The Jews were still slaves. They were still in exile. Achashverosh ruled the whole entire world. Nevertheless, how did Mordechai Yehudi act? He didn't bow down. Even though that everyone bowed down to the king. That's what the king commanded. And Mordechai stood in a defiance. Even when all the servants of the king said to him, why are you transgressing the command of the king? All the other Jews are bowing down. What's your story? Also in the meal that Achashverosh it says, that's how the Megillah starts off. The Gemara says that what does it mean, that the king made it, Achashverosh made, that he wanted everyone to do like Mordechai and like Haman. Mordechai, it says, he's a Ish Yehudi. Haman says, Ish Tsar Boyev. In the Midrash, there's two explanations. What does it mean? Now, this makes no sense. Everyone will do like Mordechai and like Haman. That's two opposites. In the Midrash, it gives two explanations. How can everybody, Ke'ish K'Ish, everyone do like Mordechai and Haman? Kodesh Baruch Hu said, Ani eini yotzei miyedei briosi, va'ata mevakesh lasot keratzon ish v'ish. God said, Kodesh Baruch God said, I cannot change the creation, and you want, right? I'm making a creation. There's a creation that goes according to the laws of nature. What do you want, Achashverosh? You want that everyone should do according to both Mordechai and Haman? That's impossible. If there's two people and they want to marry one woman, so Yocholahi, she can get married to both of them. Ella olazel, either one or the other. Also, two ships that want to go Beliman, they want to go through a strait or something. One wants to go through the north side, one wants to go through the south side. They can both go on one side, right? They can both say, listen, instead of going on the right side, I'll go on the right, you go on the left. We says, no, let's both of us go on the left side. They can both of them go on the left side, go on the same way. Elawat olazeh. Either she marries this man or that man. Either the ships go the right, either you take the right or take the left, right? But don't go on the same side as me. They'll come in front of you. Ish Yehudi and Ish Tsar Boyev, the best person in the world and the most evil person in the world. Say, okay, you're both right? The world's going to go according to both of you. The only way you can do is one of them you have to kill, and the other one you can let live. Achashverosh, he did, but if so, Achashverosh made a mistake. Because you can't do both. Mordechai like Mordechai or Haman. Therefore, Kanaso that says, Ki lo yachol letzeis Mordechai v'Haman mitnagdim. So the Midrash says what? That King Achashverosh, he said, I'm making a meal, and everybody's going to be happy. The meal is going to go the way Mordechai wants, and it's going to go the way the Haman wants. Everybody's going to be happy. So there's two explanations of this, that the King Achashverosh was stupid. And you can't find everybody. You can't please everybody. That's number one. Another explanation is Rav Huna, in the name of Rabbi Yomin ben Levi, said, nowadays, it says now, presently, when there's a wind blowing from the east, there can't be simultaneously a wind blowing from the west. If they're both blowing together, then you don't feel either wind, right? Either one or the other, take turns or something. So that's the way it is. But Latid Lavo, in the future, the kibbutz galios, when God gathers all the Jews together, Omar Kodesh Baruch Hu, God says, I'm going to bring a new type of a spirit to the world. That both east wind and west wind can blow at the same time. That's Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's what it means. God does the will of those who fear Him. That's God, like it says, Ratzon Yereyav Yaseh. What does it mean, Kolomar? What does it mean? That even though that these are two opposites, an east wind and a west wind, and they can't blow at the same time, but God will do both of them. Hainu Ratzon Yereyav Yaseh, Veshavosam Yashmiya. That all of the Jews will be gathered together. All of the opposites will occur. We see a little bit of this now in the Talmud, that there's big arguments, Hillel and Shammai and Abai and Rabbah and what is it, Rav Yochanan and Rav Reish Lakish. See, there's tremendous arguments one to the other, and it says all the opinions are the opinions of God. They're all right. They're all correct. In the end, you come to one conclusion. So one of them was not right. It says, okay, listen, that's the way you understand it. God doesn't understand it that way. Even though that these two things are two opposites, nevertheless, Yishma Hashem Lishneim. Even though two people request opposite things, God can fulfill all opposites, which is not the case. Achashverosh is not able to do two opposites. Even though that it says, Beis B'nei Adam Vachshem Lisa Shivcha, even though, yes, it says that two men want to marry one woman, she can't marry both of them. Two ships want to go through a strait, they both can't go on the right side. I know that's how the world works, the natural world. Kastam B'nei Adam, like people. Avol B'yirei Hashem, but those people who fear God, that God can do two opposites. Shekodesh Baruch Hu Yenaheg Ba'ofen Lasot Kiratzon Ish V'ish. That God can do both of these two opposites together. Okay, what's this got to do with Yehuda and Yosef and the defiance of Yehuda, what's it got to do? We'll see in 1 minute. Let's just finish this. We have to understand from that what it says in the Gemara, Kiritzon Ish V'ish, Latzot Kiritzon Mordechai. The Gemara says that, and the Gemara in Megillah says that Achashverosh wanted to do that the world, that this meal that he had should be like Mordechai and Haman, Belishum Shlilas B'davar, without any negation of anyone. Masha, this seems to imply that this is not God doing it, that even Achashverosh, the Gemara says that that's what Achashverosh wanted to do. And according to the second opinion, this is possible, that Achashverosh wanted to do so. So if so, how can this be, according to the second midrash, that no Achashverosh can, only God can? Milsa b'taima. You can't do two opposite things. Even according to the second explanation, only God can do two opposite things. So if so, the question all comes back, and the Rebbe, of course, is going to give an answer. How can it be that Achashverosh can do two opposite things, that the world can be like Haman and it can be like Mordechai, right? That everybody will do sins and everybody will do commandments. What does that mean? Right? If a person does a sin, then that's the opposite of what God wants. That's not at all like what Mordechai wants. And if everybody does good, then that's terrible for Haman. Haman can't stand a good world. So how can both of them work simultaneously? The Rebbe will explain it, but just to calm people's minds down, the Rebbe is not implying in any way that it's going to be okay to do sins. It'll be all right to do sins and we can make blessings, and it's not, don't worry about it. That's not going to be the answer at all. Even though it's a pretty easy answer, and there were evil people in the history of Judaism that tried things like that. And they succeeded for a little bit, they can succeed for a year, a couple of years, who knows. I don't know. But that's not going to be the answer. That's not going to be the answer, right? And we're going to see what the answer is. It's going to be possible to utilize every aspect and every, pleasure, etc., of this world, but the way that Mordechai wants it. And Haman will also be happy. How is it going to be? We'll find out. Let's learn the Dvar Malchut.